This is the definitive deadlift guide whereby I'm going to completely deconstruct the deadlift and show you each component part and how to optimize it so that you can be lifting upwards of 2-3 times your body weight. So as a prerequisite, you should be able to hinge. That goes beyond the scope of this video, but I'm going to assume that you can do that. I just want to say that this video is heavily inspired by Greg Nuckols' definitive deadlift guide on his website. So I'm going to be using that to guide the structure, but I'm also going to be sprinkling in some of my own experiences that have taken me to a stage where I can deadlift 3 times my body weight. Let's get into it. The first thing that we want to do once we've got the bar set up is we want to ensure that the bar does not move, but we're the only thing that moves around the bar during the setup. Very common to see people get into position and pulling the bar in towards them and rolling it away and all of that. We want this to be completely still. So that's the first point. Really important that you're wearing flat shoes. People wear specialist deadlift shoes. Some people go barefooted. Myself, I wear either Converse or Vans. It's important because that's going to ensure that you're getting as much grip as possible through the floor because your foot is completely allowed to flatten and load as much as possible. But it's also going to keep you closer to the floor because if you're wearing a big bouncy shoe, you're going to be further away and that's going to compromise the biomechanics of the lift. So flat shoes are optimal when you are deadlifting. So whilst we're still in the foot region, the next thing is to set your stance. Now a great tip from Greg Nuckols' article is to get ready to do a vertical jump and whatever position you find is optimal for you to get a nice high vertical jump, that's probably going to be your stance. So for me, if I'm going to load up as if I'm about to jump, that's my stance. So that's the first thing in terms of your stance. Then the next thing is we want to walk up to the bar and we want to ensure that the bar is literally just, let's say, typically they say over the shoelaces, but I just like to look at where the bar is and literally an inch or just almost touching the bar. That's where you want to be, and that's going to be the position whereby you are ready to hinge and go down and grip. I'm going to talk about 2 different types of grip. So we've come up to the bar, we're literally an inch away, the shin is not touching the bar yet, okay? Now in this position, you are going to hinge down, and that means that the shins aren't going to go forwards. At this point, this is where you see the anatomical differences at play. If, like me, you've got super long femurs, you're going to be more of a hinger, and so your upper body is going to come down almost, as you can see, mine's almost parallel to the floor. But some people, as they hinge, it's almost like a squat, and they've got more of an upright torso, and that's because their femurs are shorter. So don't worry so much about that. Everyone's got different anatomical differences. The main thing is we're just going to hinge down, whatever that looks like for you. Keep that same foot stance, and then we're now going to go through grip. So there's 2 different types of grips. You've got double overhand, like so. All right, that's typically what people would be more naturally inclined to do when they start lifting, but you are typically weaker in this position as the bar is allowed to kind of roll through your hands, and it's going to be a lot less secure. The next grip is a mixed grip, and that is typically what powerlifters would use, and that's going to allow you to really bring, especially on your right side, or for me it'll be my right side, my shoulder blades down, but as you can see with a mixed grip, you're essentially creating some kind of wedge, okay? Because one hand's pushing in, the other hand's pulling in, and with that pushing and pulling, you've created a wedge, and that's a super strong position. So I would recommend that you try and do a mixed grip. We want to talk about grip width as well. Just go as narrow as you can without letting the knees cave in, okay? Because in this position, and I'll come to that in a minute, we want the knees to be out. But just to sum that part of the deadlift up, you're going to hinge down, you're going to grab the bar, okay? Just use a width that's comfortable for you, and you can either do an overhand grip, which is not going to allow you to use heavier loads, and we want to get as strong as possible, or you can use a mixed grip, which from a strength perspective will be preferred. Creating tension at the bottom of the lift is what's going to enable you to produce as much force as possible to stand up with as much power as possible. So this is quite an important part of the lift, and everything that we've done so far has taken us to the point whereby we can actually create that tension. So just to quickly recap, shins are currently 1 inch from the floor. You're going to hinge down and you're going to grab the bar, preferably with a mixed grip. Now at this point, push the shins in to touch the bar, okay? And push them in hard, all right? Not just a little touch, you just literally want to really wedge them in almost, okay? So almost like you're making the bar a part of the body. Once you've done that, knees, push out as hard as you can. This is where you might need to just tweak your width of your grip slightly so that you're not creating too much of resistance between the arm and the legs, okay? So make sure that your grip's set, so push the knees out until the knees are lightly touching the arms, and then drive the chest up slightly, and that's going to help you to bring the shoulder blades all the way down the back, okay? Once you're in this position, just keep that tension, and then you're going to be ready for the next part of the lift. Now, whilst I'm here as well, when you've created that tension, make sure that the bar, you're pulling it right into you. Because when you do that, that's going to help you that's going to help you keep a vertical bar path. And a vertical bar path is an efficient bar path, okay? So that's something to bear in mind too. So once you've got that tension, it's ready to lift. So I'm going to go through that in the next part of the video. So now we are in a position to be able to lift the bar off the floor. So the key things that I want to go through is once you're in position, you want to brace. So that's whereby we're expanding the rib cage as much as possible to keep as much tension and to keep integrity in the spine through the movement. Because as we lift, we don't want the spine to bend so much. We want the spine to be as straight as possible, and the hips are going to be doing all the work with a big thrust, okay? So that's the main thing. And in order to do that, we're going to need to keep the shoulder blades down through the movement. But let me just go through that brace and then what I'm thinking when we lift off the floor. So I'm just going to go through all those points from the previous video without just explaining what they all are, because at this point I know how to do this. And then once I'm here, knees out, creating tension, I'm going to breathe in to the rib cage, expand. I'm going to keep my chin down, keep tension in the lats, and I won't stand up with the bar now. I'm just going to demonstrate. But once I've done this, I'm then going to think about just thrusting as much as I can. And when I'm thrusting, I'm also thinking crown of the head into the ceiling, okay? So it's going to be from here, and then thrust crown of the head into the ceiling, and that allows me to keep my chin down as well, because your crown of the head goes behind you, obviously the chin goes up, which is something that kind of does happen and something that we want to try and avoid in order to keep the spine as neutral as possible and to just keep the integrity of the spine. So let me just quickly go through all of those points right now. So hinge down, down, shins in, knees out, keeping the chin down, breathe into the rib cage, and I'm up. Just a quick note, on that ascent, we also want to lock out as much as possible, okay? We want that lockout to be clean. So what we're trying to do essentially, on the way up, we're keeping tension, but the lift does not finish until you've locked the legs, pulled the hips through, and the shoulder blades are down, okay? And you've got tension in that movement and full control of the bar. We don't want the bar to be pulling us down and anything to be slack at this point. We want to be in our strongest standing position possible. And so in order to do that, once it's off the floor, to do that, you just need to, as I said previously, drive the crown of the head up and then thrust the hips until you feel that the knees are kind of turning out. And in that position, your bum is going to be super tight. Okay, so if I just quickly demonstrate the lockout now and how it should look. And as you can see, there was like full control, especially at the top of that at the top of the movement, I was in full locked out position, knees were out, and I was fairly in control, and that's the key. You don't want the bar to be almost pulling you down. You're still almost just pulling away, and that's going to exaggerate that lockout. So the descent. This is where my own bias creeps in when it comes to the deadlift. And I'm just going to be super biased, and this is not evidence-based at all, but I'm just going to say that the fact that I always do a controlled descent, and I think just getting strong in that part of the movement, which is typically, most people when they get to the top, they just slam it down. There's not much tension in that part of the movement. I think you're just missing out on some potential to build strength and potential to keep your body as safe as possible during the lift. Now, as you can see, I've now decreased the load purely because when I'm demonstrating this and talking through this, I'm going to need this to be a little bit lighter. But I'm going to show you exactly how I put that barbell back down to the floor. And I think that if you incorporate this, you're going to notice that this is going to make your deadlift a lot stronger. Just to tell you a bit more about my biases, this is something that I've also used from my calisthenics training. Getting strong in the negative ultimately has led to me being able to do movements whereby I'm able to keep my body in tension throughout the whole movement and do movements such as the planche, the front lever, ring muscle ups, etc. The negative was a key part of learning that, so I'm kind of taking it from calisthenics and bringing it to my lifting. We're going to focus essentially on reversing the movement. And how are we going to do that? Well, once you're in this position, you're just going to break at the hips, and then you're going to just keep driving the hips down with control, with tension, until it touches the floor, okay? And then typically, if you're doing reps, you'll just, go through the quick create tension again before you stand up. But then the key is to break it at the hips, feel the tension in the hamstring and also the glutes, feel the tension as the knees stay out through that whole movement before you go up again, okay? So just to quickly demonstrate that, I'm going to go through all the points I usually go to, even though I'm just demonstrating, just to get the bar up. And then when it's up, so from here, first thing I do, break at the hips, and the bar goes vertically down, rolls down my shins, and it's down quietly, okay? And then I just reset at this point by driving the knees out, shoulder blades down, up, and then same again. Break at the hips, keep the back in tension, down, down, down. And that's simply how you do it. So there you have it, guys. That was the definitive deadlift guide. Just to quickly sum up, we went through your stance, we went through the grip that you should assume, we went through the creating tension at the bottom of the movement, then we got into the lockout, and then we got into that nice, slow and controlled descent. Hopefully you're going to find that's going to make your deadlift super strong, and it'll be great to hear your numbers and how they're going to be increasing over the next few weeks. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.